speaking to a man this morning about a construction cycle, and it's not often we say that, because new research out from Cavendish Maxwell shows that Dubai's residential construction cycle is compressing. Zacky Sajjad is the Director of Business Development. Morning, Zacky.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Right. Let's not use big words here. Let's simplify all of this. This is my very simple first question. When we say that the development cycle is compressing, do we mean that houses are being built faster than they used to be?
Yes, this is a short answer, and that this is over a 2-year period. So we're looking at from sort of 2023 to 2025, and they are being built faster now. Some of that is because the increase in apartments, and that obviously is leading to quicker handovers, but also I think the adoption of technology, and if we look at what's been happening in the market, obviously there's pressure to complete quicker from various stakeholders.
Okay, how much faster are we building them? Give me some numbers.
So it's let's say on average it was taking about 1,300 days to hand over a residential unit. It's now just over 800 days to hand over a residential unit. These are averages, obviously, but so roughly a third faster.
How are we doing it a third faster, though? I know you've said there's pressure, and I know you've said there's tech, but to cut off a whole third of development time, what does that involve?
Look, I think obviously if we look at what's been happening in the market the last 5 years, that for sure is a big is a big push. The number of launches and obviously the number of transactions that are now happening in the market. So obviously the developers will get their money once these are built and handed over. So they're therefore adopting sort of more modern techniques, if you like, the technology that's being implemented onto these projects, the project control systems, all of this is speeding up, and obviously, purchasing power. If you look at the same developers are launching multiple projects, so they're able to mobilize on various sites all at the same time.
That's a lot of the why, though. So here's a question, and I say this because I had a discussion just last night about someone who was enjoying a construction disco next to their flat. Are we working more through the night? So developers going more for 24/7 round-the-clock construction?
Yeah, I mean, look, that
within the
is,
law.
Yeah, that is something that happens. I mean, we've all been here a long time, and we've all seen previous cycles and what tends to happen. And yes, there are sort of day shifts, night shifts, which are sort of speeding things up as well. If you look at the sort of resources that are being allocated into these projects, I think obviously because of where we're at now on a rate per square foot, they're able to mobilize more resources to help speed things up. Whereas before, when the market was a bit challenging, perhaps cost cutting led to sort of slightly longer construction timelines.
I mean, you've lived here a long time. You know a lot of people. Are you hearing that there is more sort of round the clock construction, that people are putting more night teams on? Yeah,
look, I think that is evident if you just drive around Dubai. In the evenings, you can see the cranes moving. You can see people sort of hard at work. So I think that is something that is certainly happening. But I think also, I mean, we look just my kid's school, for example, right next door. There's a school which I won't name, but from announcement to the school being opened was 1 year, and everything essentially, it was like a big giant concrete Lego that was being delivered to site and sort of put together. Exactly.
If you compress the timeline and do something in 2/3 of the time, how do you make sure you keep quality up? Is that a worry?
I think there's always that will always be a concern for sure. But if you look at what's been happening in terms of from DLD, RERA, even us ourselves, one of the services we offer is snagging reports for our clients, on handover. So, this is all sort of, I would say, the quality is improving. I would just look at the UK market, for example. If you look at a new build home in the UK, one of the most prominent developers in the UK, from slab to handover is 12 weeks. And it's been well documented on some of the quality issues there. Here, we don't, thankfully, have some of those issues. And I think what we're seeing is a big improvement across the board. Also, it's customer wants, customer needs. If what they're desiring is of a higher quality, therefore everybody's increasing their what they're offering.
But at the same time, The number of units that were delivered last quarter were about 9,500, just under,
Yep.
is a lot less than the 23,000 that were slated to be delivered. How can we be speeding up the cycle and yet not handing over on time?
Well, I think that's down to launches, is the short answer. If you look at what's being launched, I mean, we're talking phenomenal numbers in terms of launches. It's almost a launch a day. So this is why these numbers getting pulled out. But actually, when you look at what's been happening, some of the more well-known developers, if you like, if you look at from launch to handover, these cycles are speeding up considerably.
So we've got less than a minute with you. Where is the delay coming from?
Look, I think there's always going to be delays. This is going to be a time-old thing. Developers will always, expect things to be done by a certain time. Naturally, delays occur on new build developments. So these timelines always get stretched, which is why we're seeing these numbers kind of getting stretched a little bit. But on the whole, things are being handed over much quicker than they were 2 years ago.
Are developers launching too many? Are they overextending themselves?
Well, that's a supply-demand question. What I would say is right now on what's happening in the market and the population growth, perhaps not.
But
not
for
at the
their
moment.
capacity?
Well, for their capacity, what I would say is the big developers, absolutely not. I'd say there's a challenge with some of the smaller guys trying to find contractors and quality contractors to deliver what they're promising.
All right, questions actually coming in thick and fast for Zacky Sajjad, Director of Business Development at Cavendish, Maxwell, on his new report, which will be out later today, but you have it first here on the Business Breakfast, talking about the compression of the real estate construction cycle. Basically, over the last 2 years, we are building homes here in Dubai, and by we, I don't mean we, clearly, Tom and I, not up for a bit of manual labour, a third quicker, so in 2/3 of the time than we would have done 2 years ago. Questions for you, Zacky?
Bring them on.
Some of them literally the nuts and bolts of construction.
I'll
I've
do
got
my best.
someone getting in touch asking whether or not more contractors becoming developers themselves has helped.
Yeah, that is a trend we're seeing. I mean, historically, we saw a lot of joint ventures between landowners and developers. So the developers would front it, but there was a sort of a silent investor in throwing in the land. Now we're seeing contractors entering that fray on these joint ventures. So for sure, they're incentivized to obviously speed up a little bit and look at costs so that they get some upside on these handovers when they are handed over.
And a risk question on exactly the same thing. Having your construction companies become developers, does it increase the risk in case of a default, or even on the sort of the quality watchdog side if you don't have more eyes on the project?
Yeah, look, I think what we're seeing, I mean, this is again one of the services we offer is PMC, so project management, and what we're seeing is a lot of these kind of, if you like, these kind of relationships. They need a sort of third party independent body sat with these projects just to ensure that everything is being done. But the reality is, I think the government of Dubai has done such a wonderful job in terms of putting in the controls, the systems in place. If you look at what's been happening, I think the quality overall has increased significantly over the last 10 years. And obviously, people are incentivized. Ultimately, they see the benefit once these things are handed over. So, I would say with the better known household names out there, there's a lot less risk.
Tom, you've got the nuts and bolts question.
Yeah, we've got a question coming through. Thank you very much indeed to Vince, who got in touch, said, OK, look, increased pace of building. Is that going to impact on safety and quality standards? Is there a better regulation when it comes to building standards these days, especially with the release of new properties?
Yeah, look, I think if we look at, typically we're talking about the freehold areas, and most of these are either master communities or joint-owned properties, in terms of apartments. So there's a lot of things been put in place, a lot of checks and balances from RERA, be that on the reserve funds, be that on the cost allocations with regards to service charges. They are obviously aware that any sort of shortcuts during the construction phase are likely to be felt at the service charge phase. So there is a lot of eyes and ears sort of on this at the moment from the sort of authorities and the governing bodies.
Change of tack, if we can, very quickly. Why? Because we are in the midst of the season at the moment, the sporting and the event season. Interesting timing for the latest Oliver Wyman report titled Unlocking the Middle East Sport Economy. The Middle East could unlock up to $75 billion worth in new economic growth by closing the region's sport participation gap, according to this new report. That comes on the morning that we see the start of the DP World Tour Championship. That's going to lead into the T100 event this weekend. We've got the Dubai Sevens just on the horizon as well. Yeah. And then, of course, leading into Formula One Grand Prix weekend down in Abu Dhabi. There are no shortage of major sporting events. And as luck would have it, we have a report coming out yesterday, or certainly in the papers yesterday, a certain Zacky Sajjad quoted by the Gulf News with regards to a story that they run about the Abu Dhabi F1 Grand Prix and the impact that's having on hotel rates. Some eye-watering numbers on Yas Island.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it can reach into the thousands of dollars per night, for hotel rates on Yas Island during the F1 weekend. So obviously, come as no surprise, it goes back to the sort of supply and demand. It's such a popular event with all the concerts that are associated with it as well. It really becomes a sort of 3-4 day event as opposed to just the sort of race day.
And is there a sort of bleed? Obviously, Yas Island's reporting the biggest of the numbers there. I think the one that caught the headlines was that 172,487 for the 5 days. That's dirhams, of course, in one of the Yas Island premium properties. But does it sort of bleed into Sadia, into Abu Dhabi Island, maybe even Dubai?
Yep, absolutely. I mean, obviously, one of the things, or one of the questions we got asked was, okay, what would be a more affordable option? Obviously, going out a bit further will help, and obviously looking at places like the CBD, the mainland in Abu Dhabi, or near the airport, which isn't that far, you can get some better rates. Staying in Dubai as well and commuting over, that will help. But ultimately, December, which has sort of been proven, this time of year, sort of November, December, is the peak season. So the rates are traditionally quite high when it comes to ADRs for the hotels.
So can we make the argument now that not just Dubai, but Dubai, Abu Dhabi, potentially some of the Northern Emirates can charge a December premium for their hotel rates?
Yep, absolutely. And I think if we look at what's happening, the schools locally are now off for a month over that December festive period. So there's going to be demand for, the sort of staycation market as well that's going to add to this. So you've got that. You've got obviously the festive season across the world and the European and travellers that are coming here, as well as the regional travellers that like to come here. So yeah, it is peak season.
Zacky Sajjad is the Director of Business Development Client Relations down at Cavendish. Maxwell helping us out this morning. Sports fan, of course. He's a sports dad, as well as a sports fan himself. Golf this weekend for you?
I'll try. I'm sort of trying to save myself for the Rugby Sevens.
Sevens just round the corner. I know you're excited about a certain Ronan O'Gara appearing the next hour.
Yeah, bit of a legend, isn't he? So,
Zach, I really appreciate your thoughts.